Hello and hearty welcome to Docusnap, our webcast today, this afternoon in English. In my time, it's at least afternoon. I think there are also some folk from New Zealand here. So kia ora, and glad to have you. Thanks everybody for taking their time. I'll try to present you our way of documenting IT. It's a tedious topic. Let's agree on that. And there are several approaches, and yeah, it's actually not that hard once you have a certain method. And I'm trying to show you the whole approach here in our web session. First of all, technically, like I think on the right side, you should be able to find some buttons like there should be a question mark, which very much is intended to offer you the ability to write questions that I shall answer as fast as possible. If I don't do it right away, I will do it at the end of our webcast. And there's also a button, I think, with a hand symbol that is intended, I don't know, possibly to get you voice rights. I don't know, it doesn't really work in our webcast here. So just use it for a high five, and I will be happily high-fiving back. Just let me know and hit that button when you like something, right? Okay, so let's start right away. So I have a short agenda. Don't worry, it's not going to be too frontal. We'll be jumping into the live product as soon as possible. Just a few slides before that. Who, why, and what, so that you know who we are, why we are doing the whole high five. Yeah, I see that. Why we're doing the whole documentation thing, and what's our approach on that. So let's jump right in. Who? That's us. We are the Itelio GmbH. That's like limited, only German. That's it's longer because it's German. And we are the vendor of Docusnap. So we are a system service provider ourselves. And some time ago, we realized that the customers really never have any documentation at all, right? And by now, we are several business units. We are more than 90 team members and serve more than 8,000 customer companies in Europe alone with IT documentation. We are managed and owned by the owners in the Bavarian Alps, so there's no venture capital or anything like that. So it's all organic growth here, and we are lovely made without any outsourced labor. That's kind of important, because if you have questions, if you have technical comments or support questions, you will always land in our time zone in Germany, in Bavaria, and the guys that are actually developing the product, that are helping to customize and consult our customers, they will be the ones that are answering your support tickets as well. So, be kindly invited to always hit us up whenever you feel like. Now, to give you an impression what it's looking like, that's a picture of a cow, and in the back you can see our mountain range. That's actually really right around the corner here. So dive into all the cliches, and whenever you are visiting the Oktoberfest, be sure to holler. We are not that far away. So why do we do the IT documentation thing? That's an interesting topic. The thing is, we all do know code documentation, right? We also do know things like process documentation. These are things that are pretty well defined by our common industry standards. Now, IT documentation is the odd one out. It's a kind of weird fact that since roughly 30 years now, people do IT infrastructure and systems and applications and services. And everybody agrees that, you need to document it, right? It's kind of course, a thing. You don't really question that, right? But the problem is that nobody tells you how to do that. And we want to change that. So our issue is everybody talks about IT documentation, but nobody really explains how to do it well. Now, think of the GDPR thing. You all might have heard of the GDPR thing. It's about general data protection, and there's a regulation there. So, companies all of a sudden stick to things there. Now, what the GDPR also says, there's a line in it that says every system that processes or temporarily saves personal data or data that can directly relate to a person needs to be documented technically. So that's about it. What's that saying? We don't really know. What means technically documented? Is that like the IP of a system? Is that the host name? Is that the last logged on user? It's weird. There's no really an explanation there. But obviously, as an admin or as a sysadmin, you kind of need some information. You need some definition of what to deliver here, and that's a pretty bad spot you are in, because you're kind of responsible for the systems as well, right? So we look into our landscape of solutions that we have, and well, we have plenty. We do have a network manager, we have a client management, we might have software to deploy systems, to manage systems, and so on. But all this software, that's not really a documentation. If something conks out, and if some systems die, you will not be able to basically restart your documentation if you cannot access the management interface, right? So that's a common issue. Now, we want to solve this with a smart documentation. And a smart documentation means that first of all, we discover and inventory all the things. Second of all, we understand and analyze all these things. And the third step is to control and improve. So that's kind of the method. And we'll be looking at the very detailed list of things that we'll be approaching with that method in a second. First of all, for you to understand this approach is kind of important, because it's kind of like a best practice way or best practice approach to solving the documentation issues. Now, discovery and inventory means to find all the things that we want to document at all. That means in order to document all the things, we need to know all the things. We try to automate every step you can see here as much as possible. And we do that in the first step, for example, with an agentless discovery. That means Docusnap is not necessarily deployed on every system. You can run Docusnap within your IT infrastructure or within your IT infrastructures. And Docusnap will actually work agent-free and try to find all the things in your IT infrastructure without the need of an agent. So we use the vendor interfaces like a PowerShell, WMI, LDAP, and so on, you name it. Now, we need you to also import or CSV import or access tables that basically are complementary to that information. That means if you have lists of inventory numbers, if you have lists of contact persons that are related, if you have lists of IT assets that are necessary, feel free to add them and to import them into the database, because this will help us really a lot in the second step, where we are analyzing and understanding the whole infrastructure. That means in the second step, we profit of the richness of information that you provide and that Docusnap provides in the first step, in order to provide you automated network maps, routing tables, topology maps, visualizations of infrastructure, and lists of all your systems. In the third step, we use these lists and this data to actually integrate it with our standard operating procedures. You have certainly your own approach to virtualization and to network infrastructure, and you rightfully do so. So why not use Docusnap to actually update your lists and keep all your standard information and your standard approach, the quality approach that you're already having. And by beginning again in the first step and rediscovering all the things, we make sure to keep all your information updated as well as possible. That's the approach, and that's pretty much the whole magic behind it. So let's just jump right in, actually. I've got for you the Docusnap Fat client here, and that is the Docusnap web client. For your explanation, I am using my Docusnap demo database. It's not going to be as big as your database, obviously, but it's completely anonymized, and it will also enable you to basically see through all the applications, through all the systems that we provide inventory about. Also, I got my Docusnap page that you obviously already know, and I will use this kind of list here just to show you a certain architecture. Thanks, Lisa. Not right now. And now the architecture of Docusnap that we do recommend looks as follows. You can see there's a Docusnap server service in the middle, along with the Docusnap database that you would be using as Microsoft SQL. You don't need to basically buy a new SQL instance. You can run the SQL Express as well, but you will need to stay below 10 GB and less than 2 cores, else it's getting expensive. Now, I said really, but I mean, if you already have a SQL, be happy. But just in case you run the SQL Express, don't blame us. So next thing is we need to inventory all the things, and we do that using discovery services. This is not an agent. It's basically a Windows service that you can deploy on, say, one server per site, or one server per infrastructure or per domain that will be inventorying all the things accordingly. You will, though, administer or manage these discovery services using your very fast client. And let's just dive right into that. Actually, I can click on scheduling discovery service, and here's, for example, one that I will just rename to tenant and save it. And you can actually tell this discovery service to, look at certain IP segments or octets in order to inventory all the data at the correct site straight away. Before jumping into the very detailed here, let's just get a quick overview over the user experience that we try to provide here. So this is the fact line, and we try to show you a certain overview about how to manage and how to roll out the whole documentation here. Now, the web client actually that you can see here is read-only, and it's HTML5. I think it's responsive as well, and it provides all the lists and information by default. So run the Docusnap web client, inventory all the things, and the web client will be there to help you. Now, we'll be looking at actually one of these features later on, and I'm just opening up straight away that operating systems, because this is Windows 7 time and it's about to run out, as you all certainly know. So just minimizing that again for later. Now, this is the Docusnap web client, and on the bottom you find inventory. It's for all the things that come into Docusnap. You also find documentation. That's for all the things that get out of Docusnap. Also, we have license management and we have IT security. License management is pretty much self-explanatory, and IT security is actually our permission analysis. You will certainly like that. I'll be looking at that in a minute again. Just to get back here to those 3 steps. Right now, we are in the inventory step. That means we want to find all the things that are floating around in your IT infrastructure. Docusnap will use these assistants, these wizards, in order to inventory all the things. And these wizards, they use again the let's just look through SNMP here. So you can select a company if you're a service provider, or don't need it if you only have one company. Next thing is you will be selecting the domain that you'll be looking at. That means you can also select the discovery service that you will need to use. And the next is that you define, for example, the SNMP systems, the strings, the credentials. We can do V1, V2, V3. And the last step will be to actually run the whole inventory. And what Docusnap does is it starts to inventory all the things. For example, it runs through the server landscape, provides you with snapshots, and actually there is one. This is a discovery. No, this is the DSDC01. That's my domain controller. Now, clicking that domain controller provides me with several tabs up here. One is, for example, just an editor. You will be able to describe all the things around that system here, and you can also assign, for example, users if you like to. You are also accessing additional information. That might be like a maintenance contract. This can be just, SLAs that you have or attachments that you can check in or check out here as well. Now, let's not stick to too much manual stuff, right? I mean, we're all about the documentation automation here, right? So let's actually switch into data here and check out our snapshot. Each system in Docusnap has at least one snapshot. By default, Docusnap provides roughly with 4 snapshots, and you can, of course, adjust this amount as well. Now, over here, I only have 1 snapshot, and actually, this domain controller, if you guys remember at the beginning, I was saying something about the GDPR requiring each system to actually provide a technical documentation about it in order to be compliant. So what we have here is quite a lot of technical documentation, right? We've got general information, we've got information on the software, on the users, on even power options or the task scheduling. So that's quite a lot of information, and we are proud to provide it. Now, let's zoom out a bit and actually look at let's look at a report in a second. Just bear with me here. Now, we also provide some analysis around it, because we don't only inventory Windows systems, but we also inventory Eagle or SNMP, or we run actually inventory of the Active Directory services. Ain't that interesting? Let's check out the Active Directory service inventory. So you can see there's again a snapshot, and within that snapshot, we find users, groups, computers, roles. Now, within these users, actually, we do find a farm admin. Let's check out that farm admin. As you can see, we provide some data about him. We can provide an introduction into the structure of this farm admin, of this user, the groups, and the NTFS cascading as well. And we can also actually provide another interesting and cool thing, and that's going to be the analysis. Now, the analysis of Docusnap is pretty cool, because we, as I said, we don't really only provide a snapshot of the Active Directory, but also of the systems, of the Windows systems, Linux systems, and so on. Now, every admin user usually has some services that are kind of dependent upon him. So if you stick to the, what's it called? I think it's 2012 RC2 best practice. And if you renew the admin password every 30 days, you will need to restart some services. But hey, where are those services? Which machines are they running on? Trick questions, right? So by inventorying not only the ADS structure and the users and groups, but also the systems and the services, we can provide you with a clear overview and a direct insight into which services deploy on which machine. And we can even go down into virtualization and tell you where actually this system is virtualized on. Check it out. It's hosted on. So it's this ESX14, for example. All right, now we have a snapshot of the ADS. We have several snapshots of the Windows systems, Linux systems, and so on and so on. And you know, using our inventory up here, we are actually accessing a really whole and wholesome view about the whole IT infrastructure. Now, let's check out other reports, because this is not the only service that we inventory, and this is not the only service that has an ID account. So let's access a report for the first time. We have plenty of those, and we'll be looking at some other ones as well. Docusnap will generate these reports always upon the data of the latest snapshots of all the machines that it can access, in that case, the service with services and AD accounts. Now, looking at that report, it's important to know that you can actually customize all the things that are in it. You can also edit actually the corporate identity, and that's quite important usually. You can add your own designs and brands. Now here I can see the system, the service, log on as which user and which AD account. Now, that's actually kind of informative. You can schedule that and actually get this report into a certain path. You could use that just as an HTML documentation if you already have a kind of wiki solution. You will also be able to just send this email recurringly to a certain colleague you like or dislike. And of course, you can schedule all the things in Docusnap. That means you can schedule it on a weekly, on a monthly basis, or even quarterly. Now, this is just a report, and while it certainly has some cool information, it's kind of static, actually. So let's try to get more interactive things about your whole IT infrastructure. And We're going to do that by actually looking at assets down here, because assets, sites, organization, these are all different views upon your IT infrastructure. And first of all, let's check out the assets and let's check out other assets. For example, we have mobiles, we have SIM cards here. These are things, they are edited like by myself. We have some standard templates here, and you can add your own information pretty easily. That means you can do a drop down here. You can actually also align it to certain people in your organization, and you can also find weird translation errors like this. We also have iPhones, Samsung, and whatever you like. And of course, you can totally customize all these things. But one information is pretty important around these, and that's the IP address. I'm giving an IP address to this iPhone 6s. And why am I doing that? Because by actually providing things like a MAC address or an IP address, Docusnap will be able to actually list this, well, basically manually entered information or asset together with all the things that we inventory by ourselves. That means automatically. That's pretty awesome. So let's check out two things. That's going to be a map and the visualization. Now, first of all, I'm diving into sites. Sites is kind of interesting because I don't know how you guys, and feel free to write it in the chat actually, I don't know how you currently document your racks and your patch panels and so on. Usually it's a combination of things like Excel, cool open source software like rack tables, I'm a big fan here, and a lot of, again, manual work. And wouldn't it be nice to actually combine it with all the things that we inventory automatically? Hell yeah, that's what we think. So let's check it out. We recently updated our physical infrastructure, and we're pretty happy about it, I must say. So what we provide here is an interface that allows you to access the site structure that you provide to Docusnap. In our case, we've got Munich, and we've got our Munich headquarters here. And I do remember that we do have some servers in our headquarters. So let's check it out, actually. By double-clicking here, I'm accessing a new layer. And as you can see, you can add all the information like racks, site elements, rack elements, and so on. I think this is the short for the basement. So I'm actually double clicking here as well. And I think it's like a floor type actually. By accessing this one, I can see that there's a server room, and I'm double clicking that as well. And now I'm accessing actually the first visualizations with racks and patch panels and so on. Now on the left side, there are shapes, and you can just use them and drag and drop things and so on. So you're pretty flexible about that. Now I'm actually looking at the Rec 02 here because I think I recall some switches in there. And Docusnap now takes this information, of course, from a manual source, but you can also import existing Excel or CSV tables. Because I told you like 5 minutes ago that, of course, what is currently there, but you might have some Visio things, you might have some Excel things, and you can just import them straight away and, for example, align your rack here. Now, you can use the rear or the front side, but what I'm going to do is I got this patch panel here, patch panel 02, and this is but a shape, right? So I've got my connections within my network with this patch panel, and actually I imported that from a CSV file as well. So now I'm able to actually follow through or actually show the cable map, and I'm just going to do that real quick. And I think, is it opening on another? No, that's the wire map on that level, actually. Takes a short amount of time because I got like 70 or 80 tabs open in my Chrome that I'm closing right now. Sorry for that, and I already thank you very much for your patience. Also, I got my web client here, and I open up a list of software on Windows 7 enterprise systems. That means this software has been found on Windows 7 machines, and ain't that interesting? We all have some migration to do in the next time. And here I can see actually there's a only 3 systems that have this software, and maybe that's something I want to check out and take a deeper look at, because maybe that's something that needs a certain kind of Windows 10 or something. Possible. So here I got my wiring map of the Rec 02 and of the patch panel up on top, and this of course is also based upon the manually entered information, or the information from the tables, but that's a visualization and you don't have to do it all the manually later on. Now, what we also have, and you might like that, is actually, let's look at the, there's a switch in it. There's a switch in this rack, and if you recall, we have been inventorying SNMP things, right? So by SNMP, I'm talking switches, USVs, UTMs, whatever, you name it. It's got SNMP, we find it, right? So I've got the switch 003 up here, and to be honest, that is but a shape. So I was basically drag and dropping a switch shape into here, and now what I got, and that's interesting because as you can see on the right side, there's an assigned system. Now this assigned system is actually coming from our Docusnap inventory. So that means if you connect these two this shape and this system, we are actually able to tell you what is connected on which switch port. I will show you here. It's opening up on another screen, and generates the map. And there you go. So because we inventory the switch 003 with SNMP, and because we inventory all the things with Linux, Windows, macOS, and whatever, we are able to actually tell you which port has which system connected. So this is done by Docusnap, and it's done completely automatically. Let's look at it from another perspective. I'm just closing this editor here real quick, and we are still basically on this timeline. We're slowly getting into the analyzation here, right? We now have discovered and inventoried all the things, and now I want to look at everything and get a deeper understanding of my network. So in order to do that, I'm closing that editor here and switching back into Docusnap itself, and I'm switching into documentation, because documentation is all about the output, right? Inventory is all about the input. Documentation is all about getting things out of Docusnap. Now, I've got some items here. One is the IT documentation, and I'm just going to have a quick look at that. This is basically aligned with the organizational information. And if you look at this map, this is something that you can basically draw on your own. This up here, we'll not be able to tell you about this structure because only you know it, right? But what we know is what we got down here, and we know what is connected with what. You will still have to add some information on your own, but this can be already a solid IT map actually of your IT landscape within the boundaries of your company. And actually you can ask what is depending upon what and get some insight here. Another view can be a diagram. The diagrams we've been seeing with the SharePoint user, for example. You recall the SharePoint user we've been looking at earlier, the connections within the services and the infrastructure. That is something that you can use in diagrams, and you can actually use that on your own to, for example, draw your own conclusions or draw your own diagrams, like in Visio. Now, everything you can see here is coming from Docusnap, from the inventory process, but we've got an icon set here to our right. It's called Special, and I might find this icon quite useful, and let's actually just rename that real quick and call it an incident. So if there's an incident, for whatever reasons, I will have to somehow restart the farm admin. I'm just putting up this manual information here because it's kind of relevant for our other operation procedures that we will be able to see in the third step, where we are with control and improve, right? Now, what we actually have here as well is kind of interesting. It's documents. And if I dive down a bit here, you will find a lot of maps, topology, network, exchange, whatever, yeah, right? This is completely automated. So if you are like, if you have lots of stuff to do, and if you have the dire need for a basic standard documentation, all you need to do is to inventory with Docusnap all the things, run that recurringly, like say every Monday, whatever, don't care. After 4 or 5 weeks, we'll have found all the systems automatically, right? And on the next thing you do on Monday evening is to create a docu. This is a wizard that will guide you through, like, I think it's 15 steps. Don't worry, 15 steps does sound tedious, but it's not really, because it's basically about designing every map and planning the layout of all the things. So for example, we want to create a network map, and this is the thing that you design only one time. And you tell Docusnap what you like and how you like it, basically. You can also define the layout, right? And here you can actually see, and that's pretty cool, we are generating a map with all the logical IP ranges, and we are also including the iPhones and the iPad, which is of course a manual thing, right? So, if you like it, just click apply and continue. Now, what we can do with that, I will open up the tree structure here again. Now, what you can do with that is to actually export it into a folder, so you don't need to look at it with Docusnap. And I created that some time ago, and let me just open that really quick. Doing that with the Microsoft Edge, because I already got my Docusnap web running in that beast. It's good old good old Edge. Now, what you can see here is basically, this is the index HTML. It's easy to generate. We did that with Docusnap, and it's interactive. So by clicking the network map, you'll be able that you can hover over these icons and already get some information. There's an UTM, it's got IP address and stuff, right? And we also have actually an interactivity here there's the DC01, and we have been talking about that guy, right? I mean, we've seen that one earlier in the first 10 minutes of our presentation today, and we wanted a technical documentation of it, right? So let's get it. And by clicking on it, you are able to access the data sheet about it. It's 35 pages, and boom, that's what you want. This is the technical documentation of that system, and if it conks out, this will tell you what was configured and how. So if there's an audit coming, you can just generate this document and get some coffee. Now, not only do we provide that about the domain controller, but we also provide that about all the other systems and servers. And let's actually check it out for the switch over here. Now, another thing we have is the topology map, and you've seen a glimpse of it already. The topology map now provides you with an insight into the network topology using SNMP and data from all the system inventories. And by clicking on that switch, you've seen that before, you will find all the things that you already saw at the patch panel documentation at the recs. And here you can also hover above the ports and see the VLAN IDs and so on. Now, if this is too colorful, we also got tables, no worries. There's a management overview, and we've got shear numbers, tables, and there's a cake diagram as well. Not only that, we got software overviews, we got systems or system overviews with all the hardware, and these links actually, like if you already have a wiki, I don't know, hands up if you have a Confluence or if you have a DocuWiki or if you thought of it, right? So these things can be actually included just by copying the link. And that means actually, if you have think of a documentation about your SQL servers, right? You could just include this SQL server map and actually just integrate that link into your existing DocuWiki or Confluence. Now, if I access this link straight away, this SQL server map, you see that you are able to actually click on the database here and get the sheet, or you can also click on the ER map and actually access that as well. Let's check it out real quick. There you go. And I think this looks a bit like a stub because of my demo database, but you know what is meant. Also pretty cool is, I think, the VMware infrastructure, because we visualize a lot of these things, and that's always kind of tedious, right? You know, host to VM, what is connected to which machine, and so on. Just click on the ESX and see which virtual machines have been deployed there and which data stores we have. Also, use it to basically, what's it called? VM to data store is also quite interesting. Yeah, check it out. And there you go. You also got the capacity. So what I'm showing you here, this is generated by Docusnap completely on its own. You know, configure it one time, fire and forget, right? Now, sometimes, and that's the step number 3 here, sometimes we want to include our own operating procedures. We can do that using concepts. Actually, let me switch to that one. Oh, I think it's only in German. No worries. Then we're going to make a new one. And I will write, yeah, it's German. Don't worry at all. Don't fret. I am just killing that one. And I'm generating a new one. And that's going to be an SOP Windows 7 migration. All right? Just creating that. And Docusnap will open up a new window here, and you will shortly be seeing an editor that probably will remind you of a kind of, well, not that unknown software from Microsoft. This is because we just stick to a commonly known user interface, actually. So you guys have any questions right now? Send it straight away. Don't worry. Now, just starting with the headline, as I've been told in school, and I'm doing a page break and hitting a first headline, introduction, I call it, right? So 14th of January 2020. Right? So far. Then next thing, responsible. Actually, I don't want to type in all the guys. So let's see what we can provide here. Well, we do have an inventory of Office 365. Don't we have? Yeah, I think we have the users here. Nice. So I can just drag and drop the users into that document. That's a bit weird. I don't like, this is kind of hard to read. Let's actually deselect these things and stick to first and last name, and filter on, let's check it out, on IT. There's a department that's called IT, and these are the guys I want. Perfect. Oh, I don't have a location. The job title, nope. Let's just stick to that one. Now, we're refreshing the data according to the latest snapshots. Now, doing another page break here, just a quick visualization. No, actually, list of systems. Let's check it out. Now, we had the summary that you've seen in the web client already, right? So looking here, you will be able to see all the systems of the Microsoft 7 Enterprise. We got the whole thing again here, and we find it in the summary here. Now I got hardware, and hardware is kind of interesting because Windows 7, I don't know. Do you already have the migration done, or is that still ahead of you? Write it in the chat. In my case, I only want to display the type and the installation date, and maybe also I want the build number, because that's kind of usually a thing, right? And I also want to filter the systems. Let me look at that one. Name, type, name, build number is okay, I think it's good. And confirm it's okay. Okay, so you're still migrating. Nice, that might be of help. Now, here you can see the name and the build number, and now let's also make one visualization just for kicks. And I'm doing that with the, where's it gone? There you go. We had the SharePoint user, right? You guys remember. Now, drag and dropping that diagram that, could easily be a Visio diagram as well. I got the whole thing included with the incident. Now, I'm just gonna save real quick here. Let's imagine we, wrote the whole SOP. You can actually use that to, version it. You can use it as a template. You can save it, you can export it, and the cool thing is that if something changes in here, like for example, visualization of this farm admin, let's just, what is that? Switch the layout a bit. That is not working. This is. I'm just going to save that real quick and check out the concept. Now, looking at it, you can see we are using the latest snapshot on that and on the list as well. Oh, nothing has changed here. Why? Because this is sometimes a very critical job and needs some person or some responsible person to look at it. So why don't we just schedule it as a job again? Now, doing that enables us to also export it recurringly into a certain documentation path. By the way, this could be a path that you use for the blob import at SharePoint. So if you already run a SharePoint, use this to get all the relevant information into your SharePoint. Now I'm using this SOP Windows 7 migration as a PDF. I want to versioning the whole thing, and I want to distribute it via email to certain colleagues. Now again, next step is going to be scheduling, and in my case, I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to hit refresh real quick here. That's what Docusnap does when you're done with that. And whenever it generates the whole thing, you will get a list, an index, and you will also have the latest information on it. And you also see the visualization is up to date and correct, while the prose text hasn't changed. So that way, you are able to automate a lot of things about the whole SOP, or about the re-enablement plan, about the DRs, right? And to be honest, I think the generation of it, the designing it and so on, is going to be kind of a comparable amount of work. But maintaining it is going to be way, way easier using the reference to the actually inventoried systems. Now, let's check out license management. What are we doing with the license management? We hate it, right? Everybody does. So we kind of provide you a comparison between the desired state and the contemporary state that we found. So we do that in the way that you can design your own groups, say Microsoft Operating Systems server, or let's check out SQL Server as well. And you'll be able to define, for example, a license group for SQL Server Express, where you can, of course, tell Docusnap to only recognize systems that are lesser than 10 GB and less than 2 cores. You will then be able to add licenses. We cannot inventory your licenses. Only you know the licenses, at Microsoft maybe. But we offer you the possibility of the option to actually align the number of licenses that you were able to find together with the recognized products. And that way, you are able to compare the state of the desired licensing with the actual installations that you are running. Now, we have a lot of reports here again. Let's check them out. I've got one report. Actually, no, I didn't want that one. I think I want the summary. It's going to take a little while. This is going to be the license account summary throughout the whole company. We also have a Microsoft ELP here that's already in the correct format. Oh, I can deselect some columns here. This is going to be too much. The number is good. Yeah, that boy is working. All right, there you go. Right, it's way easier now. Switching back, got overview through all the operating systems, but in my case, I'm good with that. And regarding license management, also what's kind of important for you guys is we don't have a vendor catalog. So I just wanted to mention it because that's kind of a tedious thing. The problem with the vendor catalog is it costs a lot. It sometimes needs agents on the systems that will be able to meter the usage, and labor unions don't really like that. And so you're able to use Docusnap to define your license definitions by yourself, and that way we are able to tell you what have we found and where have we found that, right? Now, they are right now still creating. There you go. Here you can see straight away where do you need to, for example, buy some licenses, and where would you mind have to actually hire more people or buy systems, I don't know. So next thing is IT security. IT security is most interesting, right? Because, for example, the technical responsibility usually is in the IT. But to be honest, how can IT know which kind of users are allowed to access which kind of folders, right? That's the responsibility of whoever is the head of department. So as you can imagine, there's some gap of information here running around. Now let's fight that. And we do that by providing a directory report using the data of the Windows inventory, the data of the Active Directory services inventory, and also by including the NTFS analysis. Now, with all these three sources, we are able to tell you exactly who can do what and where can he do what. So in this case, I'm excluding the domain admins, I'm not including the default groups, and I'm only looking at the effective permissions, but throughout all the levels below marketing. Again, schedule the whole thing. So in my case, I'm just creating it. And depending upon where you start with that report, like you could start up here or on the file system itself, you will be able to, go through more or less criterias or inventory. In my case, taking a short amount of time, it's not going to be taking that long in your installation. Because you'll have a dedicated server for that. But what do we have here? There's a directory report from the latest snapshot, and it's showing me which user in marketing has which effective permissions. That besides, we find which persons or user accounts can access what in like subfolders and so on. Now I see this guy kind of what we got here? We've got this guy in marketing Munich, and that's kind of weird. He doesn't need those permissions. So let's actually check it out why. We can do that by just putting it in here. We can actually ask what kind of user group structure is he having? You've seen that one before, right? Yeah, you do. So what we also can do is to include special permissions, but we don't really need that. We can show explicit permissions, and we can see where's the blocked inheritance. And there was something about the Munich folder besides that, obviously that error, but he indeed has permissions here, which is weird because we did block the permission here, right? The inheritance. So let's click actually on permission origin, and Docusnap will tell you why he is circumventing that blocked inheritance, because he's part of these two groups, and that way he can access read, execute, list folder content, and read in Munich. Isn't that nice? Yes, it is. So that can be done for the file services. You can also create a user report throughout the whole file system. For example, let's do that straight away, actually. Let's just use one layer here. Great. And you can also use the SharePoint on the Exchange permission analysis, of course, to display all the things around the permissions in these services. Now we are slowly but certainly coming to an end about Docusnap and what it can do in your environment. And I will be also looking at the possibility to integrate it with other solutions. First of all, let's look at the user report. You can see all the relevant persons that this user has throughout the IT infrastructure. Also, it shows the changes, by the way, right? So apparently it's in shares, but not in accounting and accounting transfers. Huh, good to know. So what we're also doing here is, of course, SharePoint and Exchange. Already mentioned that, I know, but I just need to zoom out a bit. And in my case, I want to look at the Docusnap management. The Docusnap management allows you to basically align SNMP types to highlight certain SNMP NIVs. But also lots of other stuff in it as well. But IT correlations is kind of interesting, and license management definitely is interesting because, of course, you can define your own metrics. Now, what we also have is packages. Packages is our way of designing a view that you are intending to export or import later on. So in this case, I'm looking at the helpline export. This is like a ticket system. I think it's from Germany, to be honest, and it's called PMCS helpline. I think we use it internally right now, and we built ourselves a package here that will do a lookup on the database of Docusnap and export the information in form of these tables. So for example, I'm looking at who's the last logon user, which system, etc., etc. And of course, you don't need to only look at 10 of them, but let's actually look at 50 data rows. There you go. You can also see some admins here. You got a user here on that one, and so on. Plenty of information here, anonymized, right? And now, let's say you've got things like OTRS running, right? Ticketing. That's your way actually of integrating Docusnap with your ticketing, because you can schedule a connect package. That means if you like that package, you can just use it and actually rename it, or sort some relations in your way, and then let's just write it straight away into MySQL. That way, you can also create a CSV table or an Excel file, right? And that way you have all the relevant information. You can use that as a tab, what's it called? You can use that as a way of integrating Docusnap into other things, into integrating Docusnap into monitoring and so on. So that's roughly a technical wrap around that. Keep in mind, we have the web client here with all the things and all the information. That's pretty cool, in my opinion. And what we also have here is the knowledge base. And of course, we've got the shop here. And this is the last chapter of mine, because here I am looking at, how do we actually license Docusnap, right? And that's quite the question. We got 5 editions, and to be honest, like only 2 worth the amount, in my opinion, because the premium edition, it's not too far away from an add-on, but it's got the communication paths, physical infrastructure, business infrastructure, and so on and so on. We also have the Ultimate Edition. If you're a service provider, then you will need the Ultimate Edition, because this will be like your way of inventorying new customers. It's pretty nice. So if you have a customer that hasn't been inventoried before, you can just use this old machine and inventory him. And for 30 days, it's going to be for free, right? So whatever you want to do, like proof of concept, do it. It's for free. All right. Okay. Now, if you want to buy Docusnap, there are several ways to get it done. Like one of them is to actually buy the subscription. You can do it monthly or yearly, and the other one is to buy the purchase license, also 1 year or 3 years contract. We always look at the complete network size in our sense. That means Windows, Linux, Mac, thin clients, whatnot. Things like SNMP, switches, routers, printers, they are inventoried, but they are not to be paid. So I think we're still kind of fair with the whole thing. That's all right. All right, gentlemen. So I'm up for grabs for your questions, and look forward to. Else I'd be pretty much done with Docusnap, and I I do long forward to the Bavarian beer that I might be having on a white and blue sky. All right, I don't see any questions, and you know, whenever you feel like, don't hesitate to hit me up. Looking forward to answering all the questions, and you know, don't hesitate. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. Our big hope is that you enjoyed, of course, the web session here, and of course, if you like what you see, that you also consider buying and inventorying, or buying Docusnap and inventorying all the things and documenting all the life with your Docusnap. So thank you very much and have a good time.